Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be using quite a few products from the Hero Arts collection. We're going to be doing some stenciling and using some paste, some glimmer, metallic inks, and so much more. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to start by creating some simple tags, but in the end we are going to create some tag cards, but you could certainly just create these tags for your Christmas gifts. Let's get started with the tag stitch dies from Art Impressions. We've got that large die. So I've got two of each of the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock and two of the Kraft 100-pound cardstock. Let's start off with that white cardstock, and I'm going to temporarily tape that down to my Wendy Vecchi Make Art station just to hold that in place while we do a little bit of stenciling. So let me show you this beautiful stencil. Again, this is from the Hero Arts collection, and this is the Oh Christmas Tree layering stencil. And this is a 4-part stencil, so you get 4 stencils in here. And on the back, you have this nice little color indexing as to exactly what order to go in and then what those layers will look like. So I'm going to start with layer number 1. Now you could use those little registration marks in the 4 corners there, but I'm just going to line this up. I found this really easy to line up. So I've placed it down and I'm going to grab some ink. These are the Hero Arts Core inks. These are the little mini ink pads, and I'm going to grab 2 different greens. I've got the pine color and the fresh lawn. Let's start off with that darker color. And I've got a little small blending brush from Hero Arts, and we'll go ahead and start adding this color. There it is there on the packaging, so you can see exactly what we're doing here, which stencil we're starting with. And it is easiest if down in the bottom right hand corner of the stencil it does say Hero Arts, so you'll know that you're on the right side. It's very small, so I didn't want to try to show you that on camera, but it does say Hero Arts in the bottom right-hand corner. So you'll want to check that on each of your stencils. Now here, we could have added a little bit of pixie spray to the back to make this stencil a little bit sticky. There are some detailed areas in that stencil that are a little bit delicate, so I was just carefully brushing the ink on around those areas. So now we've got that white one complete. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the Kraft color. So what I wanted to show you today was a couple different looks depending on the cardstock that you choose. You could certainly choose any other color. Something in a gray would be really cool, or a pale blush color, or even your creamy colors. But I thought I'd show you the difference between the white and the Kraft color. And to be honest with you, I really thought I was going to love the white one the best, but in the end, I kind of like the crafty one. It's got more of that antique feel to it, but both are fun, and the white one I think came out a little bit more on the modern side, and the crafty one came out a little bit more on the antique-y looking side. So there we have that layer of the pine green. So let's go to stencil number 2. We can just leave this one in place. We're going to line this up right over top, and there are a few little areas you can look for. Where those ornaments are, those little round circular sections of the stencil, make it really easy to line this up. Now again, I'm just pointing to there. You could use those registration marks if you prefer. So whatever's easiest for you. Now let's go to that second green color, and again that is the fresh lawn. I'm just going to take some of that darker ink off my brush, and then we'll start with this color. So now we're just filling in some other areas of the tree, just kind of thickening up the tree and giving it a lot more interest. So let's go ahead and remove the stencil, and look how pretty this is. Look at the depth you get from that dark and light green. So now let's do the white one, same thing. So if you're creating a little bit of a production line, this is a really easy way to do it. Just kind of move along. If you want to create a lot of tags for your Christmas gifts, this is a great way to do it. These stencils make it so easy. There's no coloring, so you can just move along really fast. And we're going to add some more layers of interest to this, but you could certainly just leave them the way they are. So once you have the 4 parts of the stencil done, you could certainly just leave it like that. But I'll show you a few additional things you can do to these. Again, we can leave these as just tags, or we're going to add a backing to this to turn it into a tag card. So here's part 3, and that's going to be the ribbon or the garland around our tree. So that one is really easy to line up. And I wanted to do a couple different reds. So on this lighter color cardstock, on the white, I'm going to use this red. This is the crimson red. And then on the other one, we'll use that darker red. So for this particular tag, I wanted it to be a little bit brighter. Again, it will have a little bit more of a modern look to it. So I'm just going to fill in where all that garland is. Let's take a look at that, and you'll really start to see how this is coming together. Now, going to the Kraft one, as I mentioned, we're going to grab that darker red. Now, normally you would want to clean off your stencil if you're changing colors. So I'm going to wipe it down, and you'll see a little bit of that crimson red will get down into the stencil, but it's okay because I'm using basically the same color tone. So because it's red, I'm not worried about that. But if you were changing from red to blue or green, you definitely want to take that stencil aside and give it a good cleaning. So let's go on to the cranberry. Again, this is going to give a little bit more of a vintage look to this tag. So I'm going to add this. Just adding a little bit of a darker area on either side of that garland, but you don't need to do that. And look at that, isn't that beautiful? So you can see the difference between the two already. And then for the last piece, you have that little star and you have all the little ornaments. And this is the easiest one to line up. You just look for your little ornament openings. For that star at the top, I'm going to use a little bit of that butter bar. And I'm using a small, round, 1/4 inch brush. That's from the Pinkfresh Studio collection. Now, later on, I decided to cover these stars, but I'll show you what I did here. And then later on, I'll show you, we're going to add some metallic stars to the top. So for the ornaments, I've got a mix of colors. We're going to be using Bermuda, Aquatic, Amethyst, Pale Tomato, and I'll have all of those listed down below for you and linked down below as well as all the other products I'm using today. These little brushes make it really easy to get into these little tiny circles without having to mask anything off. So I love that. You just keep on going. You don't have to sit there and mask off each circle separately. So let's grab the next color. And what's also going to be nice is since we're using the same exact colors on the next tag, the color on the stencil that's left over there will show me exactly which colors go where. So that also makes this really simple to do, especially if you're mass producing and you want them all to look the same. So let's add a little bit more color. And let's just go back and finish off that last little ornament. So we can go ahead and take a look at this. And that's your finished stenciling. And look at how beautiful that is. Now you will notice when I do the ornaments on this particular tag, it's going to be much more vibrant. So I'm just using those ornaments again to line that up, and those colors are going to tell me exactly where to put the colors. But again, if you were changing your colors, you definitely want to clean off this stencil before you go to the next layer of color. So I'll finish up adding these colors in, and then we can start working on some additional items. I want to show you some different products from Hero Arts. So I thought we'd play around, and I also want to show you how different these will look side by side. I'm adding that butter bar to the star at the top, and I'll take these and clean these off. Now I've got the Hero Arts Bold Prints Cling Stamp. I love this one. I use it all the time. It's one of my favorites. This is just called Script, and this just makes a great background. So I've placed the tag in my Misty stamp positioner, kind of moved it out from the edges a little bit. I do need to remove that foam mat because you can see how thick this stamp is. So I will need to remove that little foam mat from my Misty, and then I'll place this stamp right in the corner so that I'm sure that it's lined up nice and straight. Now to do the stamping, I'm going to go to one of my favorite colors, and it's in the Tim Holtz mini ink pad. These are the distress inks, and I'm going to use the Gathered Twigs. So I'll just ink up that section that I need for the tag, just lightly tapping that on. Now you could certainly stamp off a little bit of color first onto some scrap paper and then do your second stamping, which would give you a little bit lighter effect. But I liked this bold script right across the tag. So let's do that again for this second one. I'm just using my little Stampendable stamp press to press that out. So now you can see those two. You can see at the top of this tag, I missed a little bit of the script right at the top, and of course that was bothering me. It wouldn't have shown, but I had to do it, so I just inked up the bottom of that stamp and pressed my tag right down onto it. So now I'm going to darken up the edges even a little bit more, and I'm going to use another one of my favorite inks, which is the Walnut Stain, again from the Distress line. I'm not going to go right to the tree, just I want to leave a little halo around the tree. So I'm just going to come in from the sides. I'll have it the darkest around the edges and then just pull in to a lighter color. And for this one, I used a little bit more ink and darkened it up just a bit more. Again, just trying to get that vintage look. So once that's all done, you can see the side by side of those two. And I did want to show you that to clean the stencils, I used my Nuvo cleaning solution because there was still a little bit of color left on the stencil, and I did want to remove that. It wouldn't have harmed anything, but that Nuvo cleaning solution will take that right off. So now for this tag, we are going to place this back down over top. And this is the garland portion of the stencil. And what I wanted to do was add some Hero Arts white pearl paste over the top, just to give this a little bit more interest and dimension. And I've got my Distress Kraft knives from the Tim Holtz collection to do this. And I'm just going to show you how pretty this pearl paste is. It's just beautiful. It has a really creamy consistency to it. So I'm going to place that down with my palette knife, and I'm trying to get a nice even coating of this. I wasn't sure. I thought it would pull up some of that red ink up into the paste, and it did a little bit, which was really kind of nice. I wasn't sure, and I'll show you that once this is dry, but it did pull up a little bit of tint of red into it. Or maybe it was just showing through from the background. I do like to make sure I clean off the lids of these jars when I'm done, because otherwise it is really hard to open these jars sometimes. So just take a damp baby wipe, wipe off the lid, and then clean off your palette knife. So here you can see what that looks like, but let's let that dry and I'll give you a closer look. So that's still wet there. Now with the lacquer pen from Hero Arts, and this is the Sparkle Clear Lacquer Pen, I'm going to go over each of these ornaments, and I'm just going to add a little dimension to these. This will dry raised up with some really pretty sparkle in it. So I'm going to place that on all the ornaments, and that will really bring the ornaments to life. And I'll do the same thing for that other tag. Let's go back to the tag stitch dies from Art Impressions, and that's where I'm going to grab that little star. So we're going to be covering those stars that we stenciled earlier, and I'm adding, I die cut 3 from the silver metallic cardstock from the Tim Holtz collection, and I'm going to glue those together, and I die cut 3 in the gold. Now I've got the Doc P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink, and a little of this goes a long way, so I'm going to place a little bit on my glass medium mat. I've got a small paintbrush. This is a number 0, so that my splatters will be fairly tiny. I added a little water from my Distress sprayer, and then I'll go ahead and spatter both of these tags, and that will give it a really pretty snowy look. We are going to add a little bit more spattering, and we're going to be using some metallic inks, and I'll show you those here in a second. So let's finish this up, and you can see how pretty those are. This is the Hero Arts Glimmer Metallic Ink. This set is gold and pewter. We're going to be using both of those. I'm going to use the gold on the left one and the pewter on the right hand one. These do have some tape around the top. I think it's just to protect it so it doesn't leak probably in shipping. So you just need to remove that tape really easily. And then you do want to shake these really well. You want to mix up that ink really well. And then I'm going to spatter this silver on this white tag. And it's got a little dropper in it. So I'm going to just put a few little drops of that on my glass medium mat. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water to this. And then we'll go ahead and spatter that. These inks do dilute with water, so you can get different levels of that color. So you can water it down a little bit or keep it the way that it is. So whatever you prefer. And you can see how pretty that's going to look with that little bit of sparkle on there. So let's set that one aside to dry, and then I'm going to switch over to the gold. Again, just a couple little drops of this will be great. So this ink, I think, is going to last forever. A little bit of water added to that, and then we'll go ahead and spatter this. Now, I did add quite a bit of spattering to this one. You don't have to do as much as I did, so you can use a lighter hand if you prefer. I really wanted a nice spattering over the top of this, so you decide as much or as little as you'd like to put on here. So once those were dry, I can go ahead and add my little stars. So I'll add the silver one to the right hand side where we use that pewter spatter, and then I'll use the gold one on the left side where we use the gold spattering. So that'll just finish those off and add a little bit of dimension. Now, because the back of these tags did get a little bit warped and a little bit dirty, I'm going to take a nice clean tag. We had die cut the 2 earlier, so what I'm going to do is glue those back to back. And that'll also give me that pretty stitch side on the back of the tag as well as the front. So at this point, you could just keep these just like this and make them as just tags. You can stamp a sentiment on the back or sign on the back. Here I'm just adding a little ink to the corner where any of that white was showing. I had a little bit of white showing there. So I did go back and die cut 2 more of each of those tags. I decided to create these into little mini tag cards. I'm going to place these in my mini scoreboard, and then I'm going to score this right at the top at 3/4 of an inch, just below that opening, that little circular opening. I'll do the same thing for this one. Just want to make sure you line it up nice and straight. And you're doing the score line on the pretty side of the card, so on the stitched border side. Once we have those done, we can go ahead and fold that back. Press that out with the bone folder. And then we're going to add a glue right on that little tab that we've created. So just right up to that score line. I'm using the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and we can go ahead and glue these together. So you really just want to take a little time just to make sure you line those up nice. And then you can hold that down, or I'm just going to use my reverse tweezers and clip that together at the top just to hold that in place for me while it dries. And I'll do the same thing here. Now I decided to grab some baker's twine. This one is the white with the silver metallic running through it. So I thought that would go perfectly with this little tag. Just going to loop it in half, and then I'll feed it through from the back to the front and then just pull that string through. And then I'll add a little bow right at the top. And that'll just finish that off. And this could be tied to a gift as well. And then for the other one, I'm going to use the white baker's twine with the gold metallic. So I've got these really pretty Pinkfresh Studio gems, and these are just gorgeous. I'm going to use this silver and the matte gold, and I just glued one of these in the center of each of these stars, and I just love how that finishes those off and gives that a little bit of interest there. So these are the cards that we created. Again, you could stamp your sentiment inside, and you have plenty of room to write a little note. And there you can see that beautiful spattering. You can see that beautiful sparkle lacquer pen that we used. So we've got a lot of interest and dimension, but it was really simple and easy to do, and I just love this stencil. I just think for mass producing cards or tags, this is perfect. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget that all of the products I used today are listed and linked down below for you. Please hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.